Jonathan, I mean, perhaps if we just walk through where this all began, because it has been a long time coming, but just refresh our memories on exactly how it is we came to this point.
Fifi, thanks. We came to this point because in 2015, the industry and the government had reached an impasse of whether the once empowered, always empowered principle applied to the South African mining industry. And at that time, the then Minister, Nwaka Ramakroti, agreed with the Chamber of Mines that they would go to court together and get a declaratory order which would decide and add some certainty in regard to the applicability of the principle. Into that process came an election, a whole lot of politics, the change in minister twice over, and we now ended with a decision on Wednesday, which went in favor of the Chamber of Mines interpretation.
So am I correct in understanding that this goes beyond Mosebenzi Zwane, because he is the one that really added fuel to the fire around the once empowered, always empowered, even raising the BEE thresholds. But if Ramakroti himself was also, you know, in favor of reviewing this element in the mining charter, this is a South African government that believes that, you know, this shouldn't stand, because if it does stand, we might not actually achieve the inclusive growth that we're looking for in the mining sector.
I think that's true. I mean, parking aside the politics for a moment, I think, yes, this goes beyond Minister Zwane, former Minister Zwane. This goes to the heart of the problem that we have in South African mining, and that's regulatory uncertainty. And I think the parties, both the Chamber of Mines and the Department of Mineral Resources, decided proactively that we need clarity on this and we need to get it from our courts. And I know this decision has been painted as anti-transformation, but I think it's actually contrary. I think it's very focused on transformation. We've seen that mining entrepreneurs or black mining entrepreneurs do not derive the maximum benefit from mining that they could, because, as Tabelo Chabana said earlier, they are locked into investments for inordinate periods of time, because the mining right holder needs to ensure that it's empowered so that it can ensure that its mining right is never taken away. One must recognize that mining is cyclical, commodity prices are cyclical, mining is long-term, and mining is very costly. What this judgment allows black entrepreneurs to do is sell out when the time is right, at the top of the market, take those funds that they've realized from mining and invest it into other sectors of the economy, into other mining ventures, and possibly downstream beneficiation, driving employment and creating truly empowered entrepreneurs.
So it benefits the guys who already have the deal. And you're right in terms of being able to sell out at the opportune time. I mean, we saw a lot of mining deals, you know, not deriving the best value for the BEE partners because of that lock-in period. But then how about the guys who don't have a deal? The guys who, you know, 5 years or even today are looking to have a deal with the mining company. How does that benefit them if these established mining guys already meet the BEE criteria?
Well, I think to get into a discussion on the judgment itself, the judgment applies to mining rights that are already in issue. And with avoiding the legal complexity, there are two types of mining rights issued under the Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Act, and mining rights that were converted under that piece of legislation. So this judgment applies to those two types of rights. Going forward, there will be another regime for new mining rights, and that's what the Chamber of Mines and the Department of Mineral Resources, with our new minister, are currently engaged in, is developing the new charter which would govern rights going forward. So I think it won't be correct to say that there would not be opportunities for other up-and-coming black entrepreneurs to benefit from mining.
All right, so you agree with Tabelo here to say that, you know, the view that we won't be getting any new BEE deals in the short to medium term is incorrect?
Yes, certainly that's an incorrect view. And I think one needs to take a wider approach. Remember, you're mining a finite resource over a specific period of time. And what you don't want to leave is ghost towns with people who are unemployed or communities who have no other source of income. So this probably opens up the market for black entrepreneurs to invest in other side stream beneficiation chains, which would allow mining communities to grow once the life of the mine has come to an end.
All right, but obviously this is not yet a done deal. The courts have approved it, but we need to get the buy-in possibly from the Department of Mineral Resources or their view on it. How do you expect them to respond? Tabelo, they're saying he doesn't know if they'll appeal the decision. How are you seeing the situation?
One never knows. I mean, the minister and the department are free to appeal the decision. They have to decide on that within 15 days. So we'll get clarity quite quickly. They'll also give us the grounds on which they intend to appeal. So there's a litigious process that will unfold. The minister and the DMR can go to the Supreme Court of Appeals and take this decision on appeal. And if they're not satisfied with the decision of the Supreme Court of Appeals, they can go to the Constitutional Court. But I think there's another opportunity to resolve the situation amicably for all parties, and by that I mean both the industry, the government, communities, employees, and that is to find a negotiated solution in what we call Mining Charter 3, where all of these issues are sort of wrapped up and dealt with in a fashion that would ensure regulatory certainty long term.
Do you think that's possible, though?
Well, I think it is possible, particularly in the new regime. There have been a number of media reports about the ongoing negotiations between the DMR and the Chamber of Mines. This was certainly a victory for the Chamber of Mines and the industry, but it was quite telling that they did not paint it as such. They gave a very demure media statement. The DMR matched them. So I think it's a careful game of chess that's going on at the moment.
I mean, the whole talk around the mining charter is about future investments and how foreigners are viewing, the regulatory environment and what they are willing to do with their cash. I suppose it goes without saying that this is positive for the kind of investments that we do need in this economy, in the mining sector that, employs quite a number of people here to grow.
Certainly. I think regulatory certainty is one of the key factors that any foreign investor or local investor will consider when investing into the South African mining industry. If one looks more contextually at the industry, we find that we have had an amendment to our primary legislation, the MPRDA, in limbo since 2013. We've had the mining charter.
What's the latest on that, though?
Well, I think that of late the Select Committee in the National Council of Provinces is currently debating that bill. They need to publish a report and then send it back to the National Assembly for a vote. Once that has been done, it can be sent to the President for signature, and he will set a date on which it comes into effect. And I think that's the process to be followed. But I think we need clarity on that piece of legislation. Mining Charter 3 was sort of slammed on the industry last year, and I think if we get clarity on it and its principles, I think that will certainly go a long way to create further investor confidence in the industry.
Well, the talks are happening. We do know that. We are waiting for conclusion. 3 months, the minister said, yeah?
Yes, it's ambitious, but I do think it can be done. I think there's sufficient will on the part of industry and on government. So let's see. Let's watch the space.
Let's watch the space. Jonathan, we'll leave it there. Many thanks to Jonathan, who is a partner in the corporate practice at Webber Wentzel.